anything else.
All of this as the market tries to make sense of it all, from Kingsview Asset Management, Scott Martin, and from the Capitalist Pink Hedge Fund, Jonathan Hoenig. Both are Fox contributors. You know, like everybody was watching this, guys, and you could say the market traded down on worries about a government shutdown. The next moment you could say it's up on trade optimism or worried about Brexit. Jonathan, we talk to you all the time about price action. What did you see today in markets?
It was ugly. I mean, the price action was ugly. Look, we ended well off the lows. That was positive, but certainly well off the highs, as you said. I mean, gave up hundreds of points, and the internals of the market were very poor. Almost 500 new 52-week lows, only about 50 new 52-week highs. And in particular, Connell, not just the financials, but in particular the big banks, Citigroup, Bank of America, the high yield. You know, before it was just the technology we were talking about, right, or maybe just some of the industrials. The fact that banks are so weak, I think, belies even worse internals than this market than a lot of people think.
You agree with that, Scott, or are you seeing something different out there? Because, again, these headlines, whether geopolitical headlines or anything else, can be excuses to move one way or another. But do you see it differently than Jonathan?
Yeah, sadly, I do agree with him, Connell, even though I was trying to come up with ways not to at this point. I tell you, he's right. What I would add is that, Connell, when we see these rallies and then the fervor that comes in to smash some of these companies down, Apple's one today, NVIDIA's another one that have already been smoked, by the way, kids, and getting smoked again off the highs today. Really shows you that anticipation of lower prices is definitely there, right, and the market uses bad news or this little tiff, let's say, that we saw between Trump and Nancy and Chuck, right, to say, hey, we're going to sell off about 20 points instead of rallying the markets on the good news that we had this morning.
Yeah, or go up 200 or 300 points on trade, right, and then down the other. Guys, stick around. We'll be back. Jonathan and Scott.
We'll call it Chuck, Don, and Nancy. Our next guest says any spending bill passed and sent to the president's desk without border wall funding deserves to be vetoed. Here now is Texas Congressman Michael Burgess. He is a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. What did you see the exchange today? How did you feel about it?
Well, I was actually on the House floor, but look, if the question comes down to are you for or against border security, I'm for border security. I'm on the side of the president. If Speaker-to-be Pelosi wants open borders, that's her argument. Fine, make that argument. Make it clear for the American people to see the president is standing with you on security. He wants to stop people coming in who have problems with crime, drugs, disease. I think that's an admirable position for the president to take.
But, when we set politics aside and we set, sort of the point system aside, both sides, and I think you saw it in that meeting, Democrats say they want border security. They don't want open borders. Right? The president says he wants a wall system. They make fun of him. Oh, you can't have a wall from sea to shining sea. He knows that. He says, what I want is some fencing somewhere. I want more technology other places. I want more borders. My bottom line is, it sounds like everybody's closer together than you would think based on the words. Isn't there a way to just come together and put more security at the border and put some money for it, and everyone walk away kind of winning?
Well, if I were in charge, which I'm not, I would call their bluff. I would bring a bill to the floor that provides the president the funding he needs for securing our border, defending our nation. After all, that's our #1 responsibility, to which we all swear when we're sworn in a couple of weeks. I'd stand with the president on this. If the Democrats are opposed to border security, let them record their votes as such. But people need to know. And don't hide behind, they shouldn't hide behind language that say, well, we're for border security too, just not nearly as much as you want.
So why don't you guys do that? Why don't you guys bring a bill to the floor? I mean, that's what people are talking about right now. Why don't you stand out there and do it?
If I ran the zoo, that bill would come to the floor, and there's some talk that it might. But I think waiting on the Senate to do the right thing, that's a fool's errand. They never do until they've tried everything else.
Who has the power to do it on your side in the House right now? Who's running that zoo?
Speaker of the House can bring that bill to the floor. And again, I think he's heard from a number of us that would be the appropriate stance. Let's get everybody on the record on what they want. I'm from Texas. Look, open borders are a serious problem if that is the strategy that the other side wants to pursue, and I will never be for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Got the zookeeper on the case.
Yeah.
Trade concerns certainly still out there for investors. We did have a source telling our own Blake Berman earlier in the day that China has agreed to roll back auto tariffs. So you think that would be good news for markets? The talk of eliminating the 25% surcharge, which would bring it back down to 15%. So on that, that's what I meant earlier, Scott and Jonathan both back with us, that type of thing you would think would be good news. Maybe we're starting to finally see some progress in these talks. I mean, who knows? But what did you think of that part of it, at least, Scott?
I tell you, Connell, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, and I'm a complete loser. And I think that's really what the markets are kind of saying, though. You know, that's self-introspective, by the way. Yeah, it's like, look, you know, we've heard this story before, Connell. You know, we've heard this about deals, progress with China, things getting better on trade. And look what's happened. Only things get reversed, and maybe to a worse standpoint 2 days later with comments, you know, from Navarro or whoever else. So the reality is, I think the market at this point is getting tired of this charade. And the more that this goes on, the more it hurts the S&P.
What do you think the goal then is, Jonathan, of the Chinese? If they talk about rolling back the car tariffs and also apparently talk about buying some agricultural products, what are they trying to do? We always talk about what the U.S. may or may not be trying to do. What are the Chinese trying to do right now, do you think?
I couldn't begin to speculate what the Chinese intentions are. I just know that, Connell, this is having a major impact on American companies. Look, and it was always talked about, tariffs were talked about as a bargaining chip, as a negotiation chip, but you've talked about company after company saying this is affecting their bottom lines. And, you know, half the S&P is in a bear market right now. Their prices are in a bear market. So, you know, for one reason, the market isn't liking this. And I tell you, to Scott's point, it was a week ago that the market traded up on the president's tweet that the trade tariff had been resolved. That wasn't the case, and it's been a week now of back and forth after that supposed end of the trade war.
It traded up on some of this, too, but then a lot of other stuff happened. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I mean, as usual, it was a busy day.